when you are going to check or when you are going to compare two factors for a significant association, right? We make an assumption called the null hypothesis, right? When calculating whether there's a significant association between a risk factor and an outcome, we make a hypothesis. Null means no, zero, right? So we initially make a hypothesis saying that this risk factor and outcome has no association, right? That in simple terms, that is null hypothesis, stating that the risk factor and the outcome has no association. That is null hypothesis, right? Then, if we identify, when we do this research, if we identify any association, that will purely be due to chance, right? That is purely going to be just luck, right? So that is null hypothesis. Saying that statement is null hypothesis, right? So then our aim is to prove that null hypothesis is wrong. So that's how we are going to find out whether there is actually an association. Proving by the null hypothesis is wrong. Now, to prove that, we have to calculate something called the p-value. P-value, now when you calculate, before calculation, right? Before calculation, we decide what the p-value cutoff is, like what is good enough for us. Now, in biological studies, all these medical things, we use this 0.05. Now, 0.05 means 5%. Now, 5%, this is arbitrary. This is just, we take 5% as our cutoff, but there are in other, like maybe in physics or in chemistry, this p-value will be very low, like 0.0001, something like that, right? So different studies, different fields use different cutoffs. So in biological ones, it is good enough for us to have this 0.05. So what does this 0.05 or 5% mean, right? So what it means is that what is the probability that the observed association, so the connection that we saw between the risk factor and the outcome, right, was due to chance. So we said there is no association. We thought initially that there is no association, there is no connection between the risk factor and the outcome. Okay. Then we calculate the p-value and we find out a certain value, right? So what the meaning of p-value means, what is the chance of null hypothesis being right? In simple terms, that is that. The p-value is the chance of null hypothesis being correct. So the arbitrary cutoff that we use is that we say up to 5%. And now what this means is that up to 5%, we will allow this outcome to be because of chance, right? So it means like this. Now, the probability of observed, if your p-value is 0.05, right? That means the probability of this, whatever the observed associations being due to chance is 5%, right? So whatever connection or this association that you saw being due to chance is 5%. So the rest 95% is not chance. It is not just random chance that you saw there is an association. That means there's a 95% possibility that there is an actual association between the risk factor and outcome, right? Is that clear up now?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
right. So that means there is 95% chance that there is actually a connection, actual association between the risk factor and outcome, right? So that is if this is like, so if p-value was 0.01, that means 1%, right? So if p-value is this, that means the association occurring due to chance is 1%. and there's 99%, the rest is because of an actual association, right? So in medical studies, we take the cutoff as this 5%. We take, okay, up to 5%, we will say it is going to be because of chance. If there is anything more than that, then that means there is an actual association. That is how we interpret this, right? So you do a study, then you calculate and you get the p-value like 0.02, right? So, but in the beginning, you have taken the cutoff as 0.05, right? So now your whatever the p-value we identified, the 0.02 is smaller than the cutoff, right? That means there is something more than just because of chance. So the probability of the association that we saw occurring because of chance, right, is only 2% here. If the p-value was 0.02, that means this outcome occurring because of chance is 2%, right? That means then there is another 98% where this outcome occurred because there was actual association, right? Actual association. But in the beginning, we said we are good with 95%, right? So we have already said that. We have already decided that if we find something at least 95, that is good enough. So 98 means it's a bigger value than 95, right? So then we discard this null hypothesis. That is what rejection of null hypothesis. So we say there is actual association between the risk factor and the outcome, right? So null hypothesis, we said there is no association. Now we found out that there is a higher probability, like, of this connection occurring because there is actual underlying association between the two. So we reject the null hypothesis and discard it and state that there is an actual association between the risk factor and the outcome. Okay. Is that clear? Or
Yes.
yeah, okay. So that is what you say. Let's take, you find something like p-value is 0.07, right? So 0.07, that means 7%. So you find from the study that the p-value is this. That means the chance that the association, whatever you find because of the probability, the association between the risk factor and the outcome that you find due to being luck or just chance is 7%. So that is not good enough for a medical study. It should be less than 5. So for our use, it should be less than 5. So because this is more than that, we say the null hypothesis is true, right? So that is the meaning of that. So if when we say null hypothesis is true, that means we believe or we accept the null hypothesis and say there is no actual association. Okay. So if you get a question asking, they have compared something A to B and found out the p-value as 0.05 or 0.04. What does this mean? And if there's a statement saying there is an actual connection or actual association between A and B, then that statement would be correct, right? So I think this is in simple terms what this p-value thing means. So do some questions and it will help with that. There are a few with that. There was a question asking the meaning of null hypothesis. So what is the statement that best describes null hypothesis? There was a question like that. And there have been other few questions stating a certain p-value and asking what does this mean, right? Okay. Then with this, there are this type 1 and type 2 errors. This part has not been asked. I just included that for completion. Maybe they might ask later on. So type 1 means now telling a patient, a male person that you are pregnant. That means you are seeing a connection where there should not be a connection. Right? In simply that is that. Type 1 error. Remember it as telling a male one that he is pregnant. Right? So you are seeing a connection where there should not be a connection, right? So type 1 error. So null hypothesis is true. That means there is no connection, but you reject it. Reject means you are telling that there is a connection. You are seeing something where there is nothing. Okay. And the other thing is that telling a pregnant person that that person is not pregnant. So you are not seeing the connection, not seeing a connection where there is one. So that is type 2. There is actually, the null hypothesis is false. There is an actual connection, but you accept, you fail to reject. That means you accept that there is no connection. So this is type 1 and type 2 error. Just remember these pictures. It is very easy when you remember these pictures. So this has not been asked. I just included that for completion. So if they have a statement regarding this type 1, type 2, you will be able to understand that. Right? Okay. Is there anything, any issue in this part that?
So for a p-value 0.05, we can reject null hypothesis in
Yes.
medical studies.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Right. So the